Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. Today I just wanted to talk about moss poles, and I'm going to be talking about the moss poles I use and also how I make them, and I'm going to be making some today, so I thought I'd bring you all along. So to start off, I used to use mostly the shop bought ones that you get that are ready made and they're just wrapped in coco coir. They are really good, but I just prefer making my own just because I like making things like that, and in some ways they are a lot better and you can make them the size you want. When you buy them from the shops, you are sometimes quite limited to the size, sometimes they're either too big or too small, so when you make them yourself, you can just make them the size you want, and they're also so much easier to extend if you need to. So I have this moss pole here, which is one of the shop bought ones. This plant actually came on the moss pole when I bought it. And it is on there. It really needed to be extended or a new moss pole, just because last summer it kept growing and growing. You know how garden pothos are, they just go mad. But it was just so stuck on that, I couldn't just give it a newer one. So I tried to extend it and did a bit of a bodge job just because it was really hard. You know, these are really hard to extend. Last summer it just kept growing and just coming over, and I took so many cuttings off of it. But I want it to get really nice and tall, and I really want the leaves to get really big and mature. So I extended this one. It's all stable and all fine. I just added another shop bought one to the top. It looks a little bit messy. Let me show you. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see, but round here it's just sort of wrapped with twine. But it's on there, it's fine. In a few months, once it's grown up the pole a bit more, you're not actually going to see it. But I'm hoping by the end of summer it will be all nice, lush and full, right up to the top, which would be amazing. And so the ones that I make myself are these. These have only been on, this has only been on here for a few months, probably only a month actually, and the plant is already growing and starting to attach. The only thing with these, you do have to remember to keep misting them to keep the humidity and the moisture up in the moss. I do like to hose the whole thing down when I water, just to make sure it's fully saturated in the moss and the soil. Yeah, so these are the ones that I like to make myself. You can make them the height you want them, and they just look tidier, I think, than the ones that you buy. So this is the one I'll be making with you today, showing you how to make. They're super easy, they don't take long at all. So I'd 100% recommend making your own. And then, this isn't a moss pole, but this is one of my little experiments. I wanted to do the Plant Life in the Tropics wood board. I didn't have any wood on me, and at the moment I've got a really small flat, so I didn't really have anywhere to put it. So I found this old piece of wood lying around, and I just thought I'd try it out on here. This is fairly new on here, so it's not started to attach itself yet, but we have got some new growth on here, so hopefully once the new area roots come in, they will get stuck on this wood and it will start climbing. So this is an experiment, and I'm sure I will update you soon on how this is going. I really hope it goes really well, because I really want this to climb. I want those big lush leaves that you see on these skin daxis. So yeah, those are the sort of moss poles I use and I'm experimenting with at the moment. I do have a lot of them. At the moment this summer I'm really into moss poles. I really want all my plants to climb up, which is going to be so much fun. So yeah, let's get into it and I will show you how I make my own moss poles. You can just leave that there to soak off to the side. You then need just some like plumbing pipe. You can buy this online, or I bought mine from B&Q. They do loads of different widths and everything, so I just buy a really long one and then you can cut it to the size you want. I don't want my moss poles to be too thick. I want them to be quite thin, so I've chose a thinner one. I think this says it's 21.5 millimeters, so it's not very thick at all. So I've cut these to the size I want them. You've always got to remember that some of this is going to be in the soil in the pot. So just measure it against the pot that you're wanting to pot it in, and then see how tall you want it from there. That's the best way I always tend to do it, because otherwise it ends up being a lot shorter if you don't take that into consideration. Then you just buy some sort of, I just use like a plastic mesh. You want quite big holes in it because you want to make sure the roots can really get in there. This wasn't expensive at all. I think this was less than £5 from B&Q. Get a massive roll of it and you can then cut it to the size you need. So if I start off with this pole here, so if you just lay it out and you can see that that's long enough this way, which is absolutely fine. So you then have to work out how far across you want it. It's easier to cut it to the size you want it before you try to start rolling it, I find. So I'd say around here would be fine. If you just cut it all the way up. So now you have this cut to the right width. You want to leave, I always leave a tiny bit at the top here, just so I can kind of fold it over so you don't have, you know, the top of the pipe hanging out. And then you don't want this to go all the way to the bottom of the pipe, because some of the pipe is going to be underneath the soil, so you won't need any moss on that bit. So my pot will come up to about here, so I'll just cut the mesh along here. And then all these little offcuts, I always keep them just because you never know, you might want to make a really tiny moss pole for some really small cuttings or something. So they can come in handy, it's up to you. I like to keep them. So then you want to get your sphagnum moss, make sure it's all soaked all the way through. And then you just grab some handfuls of it and squeeze it out, make sure it's not soaking wet. And then you can just start spreading it out evenly across your mesh. So now you've got your sphagnum moss evenly across your mesh, just add your pipe sort of into the middle. And then you will also need some really little, I just use the really tiny ones because you don't want them to be really big and chunky on your moss pole. I just get some of these ready by the side of it. And then you can start rolling. This can be a bit of a tricky bit, but you will get the hang of it like the more you make. So I just like to roll mine out all the way across, flush to the pipe, and then just keep rolling. Like so. And then now you have got it wrapped all the way around. This is the tricky bit because you've got to try and cable tie it, but keep it tight all the way around, make sure it doesn't slip. So I use one hand, spread it out to sort of keep one side flush, and then you can grab your cable ties and hook them in. This can also be a tricky part, trying to get them in and back, threaded back out again. There we are. So now we have got one end done. I tend to do the bottom, top, and then the middle, and then you don't have to hold it with one hand, and then you can just fill in the gaps afterwards. Makes it easier for you. And then you don't have to worry about holding it because it will hold itself now. Then pop one in the middle. So afterwards it should look a bit like this. You'll have all of the cords hanging off here. So you want to cut all of this excess off, and then I like to spin them round so the chunky bits that are still on there kind of are hidden in the moss, just because it looks better, they're not sticking out then. So if you just cut these all the way down. Then you can just discard these. And then on the top, as you can see, you end up sort of having this open bit at the top. I like to close mine off, just so you don't have a big open gap and you can't then see the plumbing pipe underneath. So I just slide a bit of cable tie in there and then just cable tie it in the middle to close it off. And then if you do want to extend it, you can then just take that cable tie off and then extend it like that. You just do exactly the same. I'll probably do, once one of mine need extending, I will probably then do a video on how to extend it, but I've not had to do that yet. So there we go. This is your moss pole. This should be what it looks like afterwards. I will try and tuck these into the moss afterwards. And yeah, so I am going to make another one of these and then I will pot this guy up with his new plant. This is when leaving offcuts becomes really handy, because these two pieces were offcuts from the last couple of moss poles I did, and I've kept these, and actually one of them fits the pole I want to use now, so in that sense it's really good. You don't want to just throw pieces away when you can reuse them. Right, so now you have got your moss poles all ready to go, all finished up. You just need to grab the plants you are wanting to put on the moss pole. I personally am putting my neon pothos. I have two of these now, so I'd want like one trailing and then one going up a moss pole. This one's starting to trail quite a lot, so I think it's a good time to put it on a moss pole. It's going into growing season, so hopefully I'll get lots of new growth, which means lots of aerial roots to stick into that moss. So I think this will look gorgeous climbing up a moss pole. I love, love, love this bright neon green. It is beautiful. And then the other plant I want to cut the other moss pole is this syngonium. I believe this is a white butterfly. It's not been doing so well, so I did want to repot it anyway. And I've always seen the syngonium elbows on moss poles, but you never really see normal ones on moss poles, and I just think they'd look beautiful climbing up a moss pole, so I want to give it a go. So we'll see how that turns out. So you just grab your soil. I use this, it's my own mix. I use just a normal sort of houseplant potting soil. I then mix in orchid bark and perlite just to make it really chunky and to make sure it's not too compact. I want to make sure that it's well draining. So you just grab your mixture of soil, you then take these out of their cover pots. It does not want to come out. There we are. So I'm just going to check the pots out and see if they need to go in a bigger pot or if they are fine staying in these. This one I think I'm actually going to leave in the size pot it's in, just because I found that pothos like to be quite root bound, but I am going to give it new soil just because I don't like how dense this one is. I'll try and get most of the soil off and then just put it back up into its original pot. And yes, this neon pothos I've had for about a year and a half now, and it's it didn't do much at first. I have got two of these actually, and neither of them are doing much. This one now has just started putting out quite a lot of new growth, which is great. But yeah, it's taken about a year and a half. I found it to be quite a slow grower. Compared to the other pothos I've got, they all grow so fast. This one's just sort of not. I'd be really interested to know if any of you have this plant and if you found the same thing or if yours grows really fast. Because I've got it in really bright but indirect light. It's got the perfect sort of environment. I think it's just a slow grower, to be honest. So I think I'm going to have this one growing up the slightly bigger moss pole, because I think it will grow faster than the syngonium. This is going to be fun with one hand. Right, so I will try and get all of these wrapped around as much as I can. And the pole. Once this plant starts growing a little bit more, I might actually take some cuttings from it and then pot them up in this same pot, because I would really love for this to get really nice and chunky. And I didn't measure this very well, so this bit's a little bit too long, so I might just cut the end off of this slightly. Bear with me a moment. Right, so I've made this bit a little bit shorter at the end just so it fits in the pot a bit better. Yeah, so I was saying I might pot them back up into the same pot, and then it will make this really nice and bushy. Because I really don't want to see, once it's grown up, I don't want to see the moss pole. I want it to be really nice and thick. So once you've kind of got it potted up, I find especially when the plant's already trailing a little bit, it's easier to sort of prop them up so they're on the pole, get them on there so they can start growing, and then you can top up the soil a little bit, just because it'd be quite difficult when it's all flopping over the pole. So I'm going to do that now. So I just use garden twine for this, just because then you can snip it off after. There we go. So this is the neon pothos all potted up in here. And then next I will do the syngonium, and I'll do the same with that. I will probably speed these bits up just so you don't have to watch me struggle. So yes, hopefully this one will get nice and thick. I obviously might take some more cuttings off of it when it gets quite a bit bigger and it grows a bit more. Just fill out some of the bold spots if there are any. Yeah, can't wait to see this one grow in. I think it will look beautiful, and obviously all the leaves should turn back around so they will fall nicely. So that's that one all finished up. So you guys, they are all potted up. They are looking so cute. I cannot wait for these to grow in. They're going to look so good, especially this one. I'm so excited for this one. I think it's going to look beautiful once it gets nice, big and bushy and gets really tall. Hoping for some nice big leaves on this one as well. This one, I'm wondering what it's going to look like. I think it might look quite cool, but yeah, its roots did look a little bit suspicious, so we'll have to wait and see on that. I did take off the ones that weren't looking quite right, but yeah, the soil that was in before definitely was too too dense for it, I think. I didn't really check the soil when I first got it. I've not had it too long, so I might have caught it just in time. But yes, I'm hoping they all grow in nice. We will wait and see. There'll be lots of updates on it. So yes, thank you guys for watching. I hope you all really enjoyed. And I would love to hear from you guys. If you are making your own moss poles, if this is helpful, I'd really love to know if you have a different technique and method of making your moss poles. Love learning new things, and I'd love to see how you make your moss poles. So yes, hope you've all had a lovely day or a great rest of your day, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks, bye.